Hi everyone, this is my Module 4 initial reflection, and for this first discussion question, I just want to focus on these few points that I found in the book to kind of answer this for us. So the first answer I have is found on page 545, and this is when the author discusses school examples of understanding adultism. And in this section, the author states that the rules in most school communities are imposed on young people and enforced by the adult staff. And then it kind of has examples of this, some of the examples being of the school's power over students included that teachers sometimes yell at students with impunity, but students are disciplined if they yell back at teachers, and young people have no real power in the important decisions that affect their lives in school. Schools subject incredible control over the students, especially in the high school level and lower, and this type of control isn't fully seen on college campuses. On 2 pages over, the author then mentions that while society's motivation of providing education for all its young people is laudable, the school system as an institution perpetuates adultism. This means that just because of their ages, the youth are essentially being discriminated against in some capacity, just because they're younger than the adults, basically. Education is an extremely important concept and is certainly needed, but not to the point where youth are being discriminated against in several capacities and not really having their own voice or own say. And next I'm going to focus on this section titled Criminalization of Youth. Within this section there is one subtopic that really stood out to me, and it's titled Criminalizing Youth Behaviors. And the very last paragraph in this subsection stood out to me, and it says that criminalization of adolescent behavior takes place in multiple ways, and that one door that always remains open is the gateway to juvenile and criminal justice. And it's kind of wild to think that while, as we as a society want our students to have resources and get an education and have the support that they need to succeed in life and be, suitable citizens in the future, the people that have access to children to make a difference and the resources that they have in place are making it easier to violate, terminate, exclude, or expel people that they should be helping. I thought that was just a really wild fact that they're making it easier to kind of push them to the side. And while I have mentioned some of the negative aspects and ways that adultism and ageism influences higher education, there are some positive aspects as well. On pages 582 to 584, the book lists and explains things that allies can do to assist young people. And as future higher education professionals, or wherever we end up at in whatever career we choose, it's something good to kind of reference back in the future. But for time's sake, I'm just going to mention 2 that stood out to me the most. The first being building one-on-one relationships. In my own experience, having educators and advisors who actually took the time to get to know me, talk to me, and support me as a student definitely helped shape my educational career while motivating me to succeed. So really building that one-on-one relationship definitely gave me, the courage and confidence to really believe in myself and do the best that I can do. And secondly, the point that mentions asking young people to talk first was very relevant and relatable. And actually having an educator believe that a student knows what they're talking about and wants them to put forth their own opinion and efforts and perspectives really can give that student the confidence and courage to speak up in the future. Because then they might believe that, someone actually believes in them and believes that they know what they're talking about and are on the right track. So I think that's a really good point that they made. And then lastly, this second discussion question, I actually have a bit of experience with ableism in my own life. My uncle got into a really bad car accident when I was younger and ended up being paralyzed from the waist down. So I was able to really see the challenges and struggles that someone with a disability, being paralyzed, especially has and kind of the struggles that he went through, whether that's having a social life before, he had a lot of friends, and then after, they just kind of disappeared because they didn't know what to do or say. Getting into a business was a really big struggle at first because some businesses in our town didn't have a ramp. So my sister's graduation project was to actually build a ramp at our local vet so that he can go and take his pet, because before then he couldn't even get through the door. And that's something, we don't really think about because we have that privilege where we don't have to worry about how we're going to get in a building if they don't have a ramp. And then lastly, just going out into society without people staring. It's definitely a real thing that people, especially children, will look if someone's in a wheelchair and is going to wonder what happened. And looking back at my time in my undergrad institution, I can now see some aspects of where ableism comes into play. My school, for example, has stairs leading into the student center. And so if a student was in a wheelchair, they would have to go all the way around the building just to get to the second floor. But even with that, the ramp was not the best condition. It had horrible puddles when it rained, and it felt like it would fall through at any moment. It just wasn't, it was a very old ramp. But that was the only way for some people to get up to that second part. There was also a student in my social work classes that was blind. And my school had many resources in place for her, and someone would actually attend classes with her to take her notes for her, and just make sure she had all the documents, all the notes that she needed to succeed and move forward. And she was actually one of the 6 social work students in my class that I graduated with. So it was definitely a benefit for her. Of course, respectfully, people would ask if she needed or wanted help. And most of the time, she would take your arm and have you lead her to wherever she needed to go. That's one thing I like about my small school is people were always willing to help her. And before I end my video, the last thing I really wanted to touch on was a statement on page 514 that says, schools are increasingly recognizing the need to explicitly address diversity issues as the country becomes more racially and ethnically diverse by expanding their efforts to include disabilities. This is definitely a benefit for this community and should be something that's focused on to give this more marginalized community more opportunities. Because I have seen sort of the disadvantages that they have through my own family experiences, and it's something really close to my heart. So I really enjoyed this section, and I can't wait to hear what all you have to say. Thanks.